Good morning. Thank you for coming today in this cold weather. A couple announcements before we get on to our main speaker. I'd like you to come back on January 4th. That's a Thursday. It's about 2 weeks from now. And you can keep all your resolutions that long. You're probably doing better than me. But our speaker is a man named John Michael Lawrence. He's a graduate of Wright's Memorial High School. That's a high school on the east side of town, and of University of Southern Indiana. He's what we call an archivist. He's probably the best archivist within 72 miles of here. But he's going to talk on the need of archiving in the military and with military things, and that's a big part of our mission here. So he's experienced. He's got, his collection goes back to BC, and he's an amazing individual. So we'd like you to show up that day if you can. There's still a free lunch if you send an email to my bride. She's over there. And don't get her upset by not sending something ahead of time, because I have to listen. And so don't make me get upset because she's upset. I would thank you if you do that in advance. Now, if you look at that hole in the wall up there, that's where you're going to be able to go upstairs, hopefully on January 21st, 2024. There'll be an elevator there, and it will go up to our archives upstairs and also our library. It's one of the best libraries in the tri-state. You can ask Mr. Michael Dean. He's in the back row and he uses it, but it will be open to you and you can peruse it. We're working on, can you check some things out? That big wood box behind you is going to look a lot different in the next month and a half or so. It's 14 feet by 14 feet, and the lady to my right, her name is Lezlie Simmons, and we've had so much luck with her in what she's doing for that big box. Lezlie and Ann Blanford called the museum about a year ago and said there's a lady named Irene Rechnics that lived on Wiltshire Drive, and her mother and dad had Eddie's dress shop downtown, or clothes shop. It's next to the YMCA. And if any of you have any items from that clothes shop, we'd like to have them for our museum. But anyway, Irene was, she will tell you I'm not going to steal her thunder because I can't say much more, but she's going to talk, and we're going to make a Holocaust room in that little box back there. And there's not a good Holocaust museum until you get up to about Terre Haute, to my recollection. Chicago's got one, and Evansville should have had one a long time ago, but that will be the beginning of evolution of letting younger generation know what atrocities happened from late 30s to 45 or so. I can't be prouder of Lezlie and Ann, and several other ones of us meet weekly or every other week about creating that room. So there's been about a year of study on that room, so it will be well done. This will be our third talk on the Holocaust. Lisa Muller over there and Bill Muller, she has given us one other talk, but I think you'll be enamored about a local person that she was a Fulbright scholar, knew 4 languages, and that famous book, what's the famous book? Well, I can't remember. Okay, so here's Lezlie.
Your lifeline. Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Browning, for inviting me to talk today about the Rechnic family. And thank you, Tom David, for your excellent arrangements. Now, to stay focused, I'm going to be reading most of my presentation, but I do have slides, and believe me, you will want me to stay focused. I've researched and read so much about the Holocaust and the Rechnics over the past year that I can easily go off on tangents, and Lisa understands that, and she has the same problem. Okay, let me get this. Rising before dawn, day after endless day, for a grueling march to the factories. Those who fell during the march were torn by guard dogs, while their fellow prisoners stepped over the bodies. It was less than existence in the death mill of Auschwitz. Every day when you got up in the morning, there were 20 or 30 people dead from being hungry. These are the words of Edward Rechnick. Always present was the pall of smoke from the fires of Auschwitz, welcoming those assigned to the gas chambers. We saw them go in and not come out. We saw the flames night and day. We smelled the burning bones. These are the words of Regina Rechnick. Edward and Regina were prisoners in Auschwitz concentration camp in 1944 to 45. They saw what happened there. They suffered the nightmares of Auschwitz. Their parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, and cousins were murdered there. I'm going to show you a few more pictures that illustrate. That first one was a roll call at Buchenwald, and should go back. You can see the man in the front room is Rose being held up by his friends. This is a group of forced labor Jewish women, scars covering their shaved heads. This is the IG Farben factory at Auschwitz. They produce synthetic rubber, which we call nitrile. And this is in the process of being built. It was only 6 miles from Auschwitz. They chose that site for several reasons. One was it was away from the bombing in Germany. They had a really good railroad system that went into Auschwitz. There was coal nearby that they used in their processes. And they had really cheap labor. They used the prisoners from Auschwitz. This is more pictures. The one on the left is some men working outside, moving rock. That was during again, the building process. In the upper right, you will see Himmler walking with one of the officials from the factory. Himmler was head of the SS and ran the camp system. The woman down on the right is working in the finished plant. This is a picture of forced labor, men working in the Simmons plant. They made electrical equipment and aircraft and submarines. And this is a picture of some men in the barracks at Buchenwald. Eddie spoke about the people dying of hunger, and you can see how emaciated they were. This is actually at Liberation. I don't have a picture of Auschwitz at that time, but you can see the crowded quarters. I mean, they had no privacy, and they were crowded together for sleeping. Diseases were rampant because of it. If you can see it, they had metal bowls they were using as pillows. And this is a gas chamber and crematorium. It's number 4 at Auschwitz. Okay. That's what the concentration camps were like that were run by the German Nazis. But in the early years of the Holocaust, Those are the years 1933 to 38. This is the time when the Nazis under Adolf Hitler were coming to full power and dictatorship in Germany. With their pseudoscientific theories, anti-Semitic policies, their intimidation and violence, their propaganda, false flag schemes. During those pre-war years, the Rechnics were living peacefully and productively in Poland. This map of Europe and part of Asia outlines where Poland, that brownish colored, you might see it bigger than I do actually on this screen. And this is a closer photo, map of Poland. Down in the left, you will see a city circled, and that was the area where the Rechnics were from. They were born in Dąbrowa Górnicza, part of a cluster of small towns and cities in an area of southwestern Poland called Upper Silesia. This area of Poland was rich in coal, a desirable natural resource. Dąbrowa Górnicza, which is at the top with the arrow coming from the top, was less than 30 miles from the Auschwitz concentration camp site that would be opened in May of 1940. So you can see that down at the bottom. This is the street scene in Dąbrowa Górnicza. After years of being prohibited, in 1862, Jewish people began to be allowed to live in Dąbrowa Górnicza, but it was with restrictions. By 1880, the name Rechnik appears in the town census. By 1933, many of the restrictions were gone. However, significant ones remained. For example, Jewish people were not permitted to own coal mines, the biggest activity of the region. So, Jewish families leased mines from Gentiles who owned in name only. Eddie Rechnick's family was in the coal mining business. Eddie was manager of one of the mines. Irene Rechnick, their daughter, recalled that her father was well liked by the workers because he would go down into the mines with them and sometimes bring miners home, and they would drink together. Eddie was born in 1905. Regina Rechnick was born in 1907. Eddie and Regina married in 1932, and their daughter Irene was born in 1934, the same year Adolf Hitler declared himself Führer. In 1939, the Rechnicks were doing well and enjoying life. Eddie was managing the coal mine, and he was in the Polish Army Reserves. Regina was working in an import-export office. Irene was an active 5-year-old. They had a large and close-knit family. Eddie had 8 Rechnick siblings. Regina had 11 Canarak siblings. These are some photos of them. This is a photo at a summer spa in Mineral Springs. The red arrow, if you can see it on the right, that is of Regina Rechnick. This was in 1935. The younger woman on the left with the boy was her sister Rose Spiegelman and her son Simon. Simon is now 94. He lives in California. He's a wonderful gentleman. And we have, Stan Newman has made a video of Simon, and we'll get to see that one of these days. I'm not sure who the older woman is in back, but I think it may have been their stepmother. This is a picture of the Rechnick family. Of course, young Irene and her mother Regina, and Eddie leaning over her shoulder. And the other people are part of Eddie's family. This is Eddie, Regina, and little Irene at a ski resort in the wintertime. There are other pictures of Regina in skiing. It was a favorite place to go. I think the name of it was Zakopane. I have some pictures of other family members in sleighs there. And these resorts were in southern Poland in the more mountainous area and favorite places to go. This is a favorite photo of mine. It's of Regina and young Irene walking on the street. Because if you notice, if you can see it, Irene has a little purse. She has her outfit. Clothes were always important. Regina's father owned a haberdashery in the town where they lived. And here's another picture. These are two more sisters of Regina's. On the left is Matulka and her husband Jacob, and in the middle is Leosha and her husband Heinrich. And I include this picture because only one of them survived the Holocaust. On September 1, 1939, Germany invaded Poland. Regina later told her nephew, Simon, when war broke out, Eddie reported to his Polish Army Reserve Unit and was sent to the front. As German tanks appeared and overran the Polish defenses, the Polish soldiers retreated east, and Eddie with them found work in a factory in the eastern Soviet-occupied area. Regina joined Eddie for a few months, then they returned to Dubrowa Górnicza, where Irene was in the care of family. When the German army invaded, the paramilitary Nazi SS arrived with them. Under Himmler, the SS administered the ghettos and forced labor arrangements in both ghettos and camps, and they built the concentration and death camps. The Gestapo was part of the SS. The Einsatzgruppen were Nazi SS death squads that traveled with the army and were responsible for mass murders of civilians in all the German-occupied territories. In Poland, atrocities were committed against the Jewish population, including the burning of synagogues and the shooting of those inside who tried to escape. This is a picture of the ghetto in Benjamin, which was a community right next to Dubrowa Górnicza. It would be like Newburgh and Evansville. There was a rapid concentration of Jews into larger towns where they were forced into ghettos. Jews had to wear a white armband with the Star of David on it. They were excluded from markets, segregated in tram cars, and subject to a curfew. Jewish property and businesses were confiscated, bank accounts were blocked. Jews were excluded from economic life and isolated from non-Jewish populations. Soon they were being deported to work camps or were forced to work in nearby factories and workshops, making things for the Germans. Fences and walls with police gates were built around the ghettos. This is an example of one of those. This is an example of some of the forced labor, but a lot of the forced labor was in sewing factories and manufacturing places. Again, they were forced to make things for the German war machine. In early 1943, the Rechnics and others from Dubrowa Górnicza were moved to the Stradula ghetto in larger snow bits. I practiced that, but I still can't quite get it. Concentrating, they were moved. Earlier, anybody out in the country, in villages, were moved into the smaller towns, and then they were moved into the bigger cities. There was always a plan. There were shortages of food, medicine, and clothing. Families were forced to share cramped living spaces. They might get one room for a whole family of, like 6, 8 people. Diseases, starvation, overcrowding, and unsanitary conditions all took their toll. And there were many abandoned children like this one that you see. They didn't survive very long. It was a very tough existence. In the ghetto, there were random executions and selections of people from the ghetto to be sent to the concentration camp at Auschwitz. This is an example of them rounding up a group of people. This is actually in front of a train station. They will go into the station and they will get into cars. Now, sometimes they were railroad passenger cars, but mostly they were like cattle cars. They were enclosed, poor ventilation, no bathroom facilities, standing room only. While the Rechnics were in the ghettos, they attempted several escapes. One time the Rechnics were smuggled out and were in hiding. Then someone must have denounced us, Irene recalled one time to me, because the Germans came and took us to prison. They screamed at us and kicked us. Irene was 9. Luckily, the family was not shot and was returned to the ghetto. In early 1944, Irene was smuggled out of the ghetto and hidden with the family of a Polish miner who'd known her father. So at age 10, Irene became what was called a hidden child. If the Nazis discovered a Jewish child, they would send the child to a concentration camp, where those under age 12 were usually killed. Older children became slave labor. Irene recalled that one day the man who was hiding her said to her that he thought the Nazis were generally right about the Jews. However, he did feel differently about her father and hoped he would be safe. Irene lived in constant fear and had to run into the bedroom to hide when anyone came to the house. This is a picture of the entrance. Actually, it's the entrance to Birkenau. Birkenau was Auschwitz II. It became the largest of the killing centers at the camp. We won't detail all of that today. There was an unloading ramp, but you can't see. This shows you people on the ramp. They have just gotten off of a train, and this is a selection process where they would be separated. Shortly after Irene was hidden, the ghetto where Eddie and Regina still were was liquidated, and they were sent to Auschwitz, where they were separated. Both were selected for labor. Eddie was sent to a subcamp where he worked in an airplane parts factory, and Regina worked in a munitions factory. Matulka, whom you saw earlier in that street scene of 4 people, and her daughter Lucia, age 5, were also sent to Auschwitz. Matulka was selected for labor. However, she would not leave her daughter, so she went to the gas chamber with her. This is one of Bruce Green's photos of the crematorium at Auschwitz. By the end of 1944, Germany was losing the war. The Soviet Union was advancing from the east The Soviets liberated Auschwitz-Birkenau on January 27, 1945. Unfortunately, just 10 days. Hi, Ann. Good to see you. Unfortunately, just 10 days earlier, 60,000 prisoners from Auschwitz, including Eddie and Regina, were forced in a death march west to Germany. 15,000 prisoners died on that death march in the middle of winter. This is, I'm sorry, I know these are poor quality maps, but if you just look where the circles are, it's the same one you saw earlier with the town of Dubrovnik in the black circle with the arrow up on top, Auschwitz below. And now you see to the left 2 circles. And those were the towns of Klavitz and Władysław, where prisoners were marched from Auschwitz. It was the middle of winter. This is a photo of Auschwitz, of the electrified fences and the snow on the ground. Simon Spiegelman wrote about that death march, and this is what Regina had told him about it. Regina and Leosha followed the emaciated and tired bodies inching forward on the road. The Nazi guard shot those who fell behind or moved out of line. Prisoners moved 1 foot in front of the other in the snow that turned to ice under their feet. The thirst was unbearable. Leosha ran to the side of the road, cupping her hands to scoop up some snow to quench her thirst. A shot rang out, and she fell face down into the snowbank. Regina had to move on. How difficult it must have been to see your sister killed in front of you, and then to have to abandon her and move on. Regina's group was transported from Glavitz, that northern route. They went to Ravensbrück in northern Germany, and later they were transferred to Buchenwald in central Germany. After liberation, Regina was in the Linz, Austria displaced person camp, and she received hospital care. Eddie was taken the southern route south to Mauthausen, infamous for its stone quarry and its stairs of death. Overcrowded conditions became worse, and new prisoners there were sent to subcamps. This is a picture of Eddie's prisoner card. Some of these records are available. A lot of the paper records were saved. There are not many photographs up until the liberation. So you can see on the left, at the left corner, it says Mauthausen. And then on the right, you see his card, and his prisoner number is up in the right-hand corner, and details about him. These records are available through the tracing service and through the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum. Mauthausen was liberated, and this is a picture of the men quarrying stone at Mauthausen. It was very difficult work, and the intent and what they did was literally work people to death. Mauthausen was liberated by the United States Army May 5th, 1945. Eddie and Regina found each other as displaced persons, and then they returned to Dubrovnik to find Irene with an aunt who had moved Irene from the home of the Polish family. Irene was now age 11. Eddie's Rechnic family, Regina's Canarak family, and the Simon Spiegelman family were decimated. This is a family tree of the Canarak. That was Regina's family before the war. You don't have to worry about reading all the names. This is a picture of what their family tree looked like after the war. All the blanks are those who died in the Holocaust.